Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and sisters, a couple of things that I want to talk about, share my thoughts with you. The first is something which we are all familiar with, which is the issue of fake news. Just this morning, somebody sent me a video of people, Muslims protesting in Britain, claiming that this was against a crackdown on Muslims by the Sri Lankan government after the Easter Sunday blasts. When I checked, it had nothing to do with that. This was a protest by Muslims in 2013 for some anti-Muslim riots that happened in Sri Lanka. Nothing whatsoever to do with the blasts or with what the police is doing. So, of course, to the best of my ability, I sent out the clarification to the person who sent this video to me as well as to others. I want to say to you very, very important message, which is never ever forward something that you have not personally verified the authenticity of. Number one. Number two, if you cannot verify the authenticity, you don't have the net savvy enough to do that, then just don't forward. Allah will not ask you, it's not one of the questions on the Day of Judgment, how many forwards did you send? So please do not forward any message that you are not sure about. If you never forward any message in the rest of your life from this moment until the day you die, believe me, you will be a far happier person than the one who forwards messages which are false and then will stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a liar. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said very clearly that just conveying something without knowledge is equal to telling a lie, which is haram. The ayat of Surah Al-Hujurat also are clear about this issue of spreading rumors, and Allah advised us and said, do not believe it unless you have checked. So let us follow the Quran and the Sunnah and stop this issue of mindlessly forwarding stuff that we get on WhatsApp and on the internet. Writing a disclaimer to say forwarded as received, believe me, it is not sufficient. That only shows that not only are you mindless, but you are also lazy. So please don't do that. Don't forward anything at all. If you are so interested in forwarding, then first verify whether what you are forwarding is true or not. And the safest thing is not to forward at all. The second very, very, very important thing is this. Anytime something like this happens, like the blast that happened in Sri Lanka, if we are not careful, you will find that once the first shock has worn off, you will find people looking for scapegoats and people looking for others to blame. So very often you will find Muslims blaming other Muslims. You might find the Salafis blaming the Barelvis. You might find the Barelvis blaming the Deobandis, and you might find the Deobandis blaming somebody else, or the Shia blaming the Sunni, and so on and so forth. My brothers and sisters, please understand, all of this, if you do, then you are playing into the hands of the true enemies of Islam who want to demean you, they want to defame you, and they want to remove you from the face of the earth. And for those people, it does not matter whether you are Salafi or Barelvi or Sunni or Shia or Hanafi or Shafi. It makes no difference to them as far as they are concerned. As long as you said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you are a Muslim and therefore you should be eliminated. That is their thinking. Please don't play into their hands. This is the time for us to stand together as one ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna hadihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fa'budun. Allah said, verily and truly, your ummah is one ummah and I am your Rabb, so worship me. Please understand very clearly, the Barelvi, the Shafi, the Sunni, the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Hanbali, the Salafi, the Sufi, the Shia, the Sunni, they all say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It is not your job and my job to go into somebody's heart to see whether he is saying it sincerely or unsincerely. Leave Allah's work to Allah. Allahu Samad. Allah does not need your help. Allah didn't appoint you and me as His assistant gods in this earth to let Him know who is sincere and who is not sincere. Leave all of this aside. Every Muslim man or woman is our brother or sister of faith, a brother and sister in faith, and every non-Muslim man or woman is our brother or sister in humanity. There are only two kinds of people on the face of this earth: brothers in faith or brothers in humanity, sisters in faith or sisters in humanity. Let us get this into our skulls and into our hearts, and let us start living and working according to this principle. Please, 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 I sincerely request you, get out of all these sectarian thoughts. If you find somebody blaming, for example, in Sri Lanka, if you find somebody saying that, those people who blew themselves, actually they were of this denomination, shut them up. You tell them, forget that. Whichever denomination they were, that denomination or that form of belief did not tell them to kill innocent people. So they were wrong no matter what they were, and we stand together against any such violence, against any such behavior. Please do not fall into the trap of pointing fingers at one another, of blaming one another. This is the time when we need real leadership. We don't need sectarianism. Sectarianism is what got us here. Read some history, my brothers and sisters. In Europe, blood flowed on the streets less than 200 years ago. The 100-year war between England and France, which was fought for 114 years, and it's still called a 100 years war. I don't know why they do that. But anyway, the point is that war was between Protestants and Catholics. But today you find Protestants and Catholics sitting together, working together as one people, even though their beliefs are completely different. Now, please understand that Europeans learned this lesson, that killing one another does not help anybody. It does not help the Catholics. It doesn't help the Protestants. Nobody. The Jews were persecuted for literally millennia. They were persecuted for thousands of years in the war in medieval Europe, in Russia, all of which was predominantly Christian. The Jews took refuge in the Ottoman Empire. They took refuge in Palestine. They took refuge in the lands ruled by the Muslims. But today we always talk about Judeo-Christian culture, Judeo-Christian something, which means that the Jews and the Christians have realized that this mutual fighting and killing each other does not help, right? Now the point is, everyone seems to have understood this except Muslims. Now we have to understand this. We have to become a united culture of human beings. A Judeo-Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, right? Atheist culture. It doesn't matter what you believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants to believe in Allah may do so. Whoever wants to deny may do so. Who are you or I to deny what Allah has given? Allah gave people the freedom to believe or the freedom not to believe. La ikraha fid din. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Allah said there is no compulsion in religion. The two pathways have been shown clearly. The pathway of guidance and the other pathway have been shown clearly. My brothers and sisters, as I said, please don't try to take the positions of Allah. You are not Allah. You are not assistant Allah. So don't try to act as if you are. We are human beings, and every single one of us is answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So especially in times like this, let this evil thing which happened become a source of good by bringing our hearts together. Our hearts together as Muslims, overriding whatever doctrinal differences we have. Our hearts together as human beings, overriding any belief differences that we may have. Let us not fall into this trap of allowing doctrinal differences of opinion and differences in belief to drive us further apart. Please understand, when we drive ourselves apart from each other, the only people that we are helping are the enemies of Islam, are the enemies of peace and harmony, are the enemies of humanity. You are strengthening the hands of the evil forces which want to create chaos in the world, so that then they will be the rulers. Believe me, this is nothing is accidental. This is a plan by people to sow chaos so that they can take control. In a chaotic situation, the first people to take control are the criminals. When South Africa became free, why did crime suddenly spread in South Africa? Because that is the reality of all revolutions. At the end of a revolution, the standing order of society would have collapsed, would have been broken down, because that is what the revolution is all about. So who takes over? The criminals. Because criminals are highly organized. A crime system, a mafia of any kind, has a very strong command structure, has very strong leadership, has cadres who obey unquestioningly, otherwise they have they pay a very severe price for disobedience. So it works fantastically well. Now, unless of course there is strong leadership to take over from whichever leadership fell. And that's where you find that at the end of a revolution, in most places, crime goes suddenly out of proportion and crime increases because of this reason. The same thing is happening here globally. There are criminals of all kinds who want to sow discord, who want to sow all kinds of differences to create chaos. This chaos is created in many ways. One of the ways is through this terrible, tragic incident that happened in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, by blasts and killing, mass killing, by genocide. It can happen by spreading fake news, which results in people in creating riots and pogroms against people who are weak, against minorities, against weak people. It can happen in many ways, but the goal of all of that is only one, and that goal is to destroy your leadership, is to destroy your ability to think, is to destroy your ability to stay together. If you allow that to happen, at the end of something like this, if you find people pointing fingers at this or that, believe me, you are playing into the hands of your enemies who want nothing but destruction for you. The enemies, the people, they are not your friends, they are your enemies. They want you to fight amongst yourselves so that you fall apart. So if you find, for example, in Sri Lanka, if you find people blaming this or that denomination of Muslims, or blaming the government, or blaming the ministry, or blaming ACJU, or blaming whichever leadership you have in Sri Lanka, believe me, that is the voice of the enemies of the Muslims of Sri Lanka, and it is the voice of the enemies of Islam. Don't follow them, reject them, tell them to shut up, absolutely and totally reject them. Follow your leadership. Alhamdulillah, you have good leadership. Follow that leadership, because the ACJU, the people in the government, good thinking people everywhere, and I'm so encouraged to see. I saw a video of a British parliamentarian, the shadow minister, who gave a beautiful talk in the British Parliament. I saw all of that. I said, all of this is so encouraging that it's so we feel so happy to see that there are people who are talking this language. That is Emily Ann Thornbury, British Labour politician, and she is the Shadow Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs since 2016. I will send this video also for those who may not have seen it. It's salutary. All power to her and to her party, who have been promoting peace and harmony. The point is that when other people, when people who have been hurt, when people who have been even more directly affected than the Muslims, when they have the bigness of heart and spirit, like we saw with Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and her reaction, absolutely salutary example for the world to follow. When we have that, and then instead of emulating those good examples and setting our own good examples ourselves, if we Muslims fall into discord, we fall into infighting, we fall into exporting blame between ourselves, that would be absolutely tragic and utterly and totally shameful. I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you, please listen to what I have to say. Follow your leaders, because those leaders are good people. Follow in Sri Lanka, follow the ACJU, because they are wise people, they are good people, they are muttaqeen, alhamdulillah. They have never led you astray. They are not leading you on a path that points to your and everybody's destruction. They are talking about peace and harmony. Follow them, follow their lead. If you find anyone pointing fingers at other Muslims and groups and promoting discord, reject them totally and completely out of hand. I am saying this because from India, from where I am watching this whole thing happening, when I find that when I find some good things happening, I'm very happy. But when I find things like this where people are, pointing fingers at one another, I think this is a very, very bad situation. I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend to you, and I request you, please stop doing that. And if anyone else is doing it, please stop them also. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you, protect you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you those who will put salve and healing and bring healing to those who have been hurt and who have been devastated and who have been bereaved by this horrible, terrible thing that happened. And may this be ever the last such incident that happens in Sri Lanka or anywhere in the world. Let us aim for that this 21st of April, Easter Sunday, becomes a marker in the history of mankind to say that this was the last incident of its kind that ever happened. Let us focus towards that. Jazakallahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.